Hey, we're ready to begin. Councillor McKelvey, you can go ahead. Thank you.
Good morning and welcome. I'm Jennifer McKelvey, Councillor for Scarborough Rouge Park and Chair of the City's Infrastructure and Environment Committee. I'm pleased to meet with you today to discuss Ontario and Canada's investment alongside the City of Toronto in community recreation. Today I'm joined by James Maloney, Member of Parliament for Etobicoke Lakeshore, on behalf of the Honourable Catherine McKenna, Canada's Minister of Infrastructure and Communities, Christine Hogarth, Parliamentary Assistant to the Solicitor General, Community Safety, and Member of Parliament for Etobicoke Lakeshore, on behalf of the Honourable Laurie Scott, Ontario's Minister of Infrastructure, and Mayor John Tory. Without further ado, I'd like to ask James Maloney, Member of Parliament for Etobicoke Lakeshore, to deliver remarks on behalf of the Government of Canada.
Thanks, Councillor McKelvey. I appreciate the invitation and very pleased to be here today for this great announcement. Along with you and Christine Hogarth and Mayor Tory, I'm here virtually on behalf of Minister Catherine McKenna, who's our Minister of Infrastructure and Communities. It would be great if we were here in person, but in the circumstances, we're doing the best we can, and we're all continue to work together and trying to get through this difficult time. You know, it's been a year now since last March. We've been impacted by the consequences of COVID-19, and we've been all working together and doing our best. And Canadians, really from coast to coast, have been doing that, and we've seen remarkable progress. But there's a little further to go. And one of the things we've seen throughout this very difficult time is three levels of government working together. And I'm really pleased to be here with you, Councillor, but especially Mayor Tory, who we've been working very closely with since before the pandemic, but over the last year, we've made great strides, and we're making progress, and we are getting through this. And of course, my provincial counterpart here in Etobicoke Lakeshore, Christine Hogarth, who I enjoy working with here in the riding. And I would like to give a shout out to our local councillor, Mark Grimes, as well, who's part of our team here locally, who's working so hard. Now, having got to the point where we're at now, it's time to start moving forward, building back and getting our communities back on their feet. And the announcement we're here to make today is very special because, and as I'm sure Christine will agree with me, people in Etobicoke Lakeshore really identify themselves by their community. They have a strong sense of neighborhood and identify themselves. And that's why this announcement today is so particularly special. Now, the Government of Canada is investing over $3 million in a couple of projects in this community through the Infrastructure Stream of Investing in Canada plan. I'd want to talk briefly about the two of them. The first is the Norseman Community Pool, which will be upgraded, the replacement of the roof, mechanical and electrical updates to the HVAC system, and important accessibility improvements to make this more accessible to our residents and people in our neighborhood. Again, this is particularly special for me. I grew up not far from that school. I've been riding my bike around there since the time I was a young lad. So seeing these investments is particularly special and very positive. In addition, we're seeing upgrades to the Sir Adam Beck as well as the Rosedale artificial ice rinks where I played hockey as a kid. We're seeing replacement of refrigeration plants, upgrades to mechanical rooms, and construction of new concrete pads to make these facilities more accessible and more available and in better condition for our community residents. It's particularly important because as we emerge from this pandemic, we've seen this sense of community, we've seen the pride locally, and we've seen the importance of the need to get out and stay active. So the investment in these facilities is particularly special. Now, investing in community infrastructure is essential. It grows the economy. It creates jobs. It supports people in our neighborhoods. It supports our youth. It supports our seniors. Now, today's investments are going to, rehabilitate these facilities. They're going to make that better for everybody in the community. It provides for an active and healthy lifestyle. The partnerships are key to supporting the communities across Etobicoke Lakeshore. And again, I just want to, you know, express my gratitude for the city and the province and the federal government working so closely together. So it's really great news for us here in Etobicoke Lakeshore. I want to say thank you again to everybody today for being here. And on behalf of the minister, just express my gratitude. And we look forward to being able to go use these facilities in the coming months and years ahead. And it's important that we plan ahead make sure these facilities are ready to go as we're emerging from this, which we will do in very soon, very short order. So thanks very much, Councillor. I appreciate it. I'm now going to turn it over to my friend and colleague, my provincial counterpart, Christine Hogarth.
Well, great. Well, thank you, James, and Mayor Tory, great to be with you, and Councillor McKelvey, always nice to see you. You know, once again, it's great to all work together as a group, and this is a really good example of the three levels of government working together. So I'm really pleased to be here as the MPP for Etobicoke Lakeshore, and of course on behalf of my colleague Minister Laurie Scott, the Minister of Infrastructure, and the Ontario government. We are committing a total of $3 million in provincial funding to improve 3 recreational facilities. 2 of them are in South Etobicoke and 1 of them is in Rosedale. And in Etobicoke, over $1.6 million will support improvements at the Norseman Community Centre, which is right down the street from my office here. And I remember my days of working at City Hall. One of my tasks as a staff member there was to go research the recreational centers around the community. And I remember going to Norseman Pool and they showed me a little bit about the roof and they said they needed some fixing up in the change rooms. And, you know, just some things just to make it improve the facility for all. So it's great to see that this announcement is actually taking place today. So some of the renovations will make the pool's change rooms more inclusive for all residents. The Norseman Community Pool is a community resource and it provides recreational programming such as swimming lessons for residents. And today's funding, the project will improve the facility's energy efficiency and reduce maintenance costs and increase the pool's longevity and improve accessibility for seniors, families, and persons with disabilities. And I know that parking lot is, in normal times, it's always full of people. So it certainly is a used facility. We're also investing over $1.4 million in upgrades to 2 artificial rinks, and one, of course, is in Alderwood at Sir Adam Beck Artificial Rink, and the other in Rosedale, east of Toronto. And funding will support a variety of operational enhancements to help maintain existing service levels while allowing residents to have fun and, of course, stay fit. Upgrades to both the rinks will include a full replacement of the refrigeration plants, upgrades to the mechanical rooms, and important accessibility improvements to the washrooms, the front entrances, and paths to travel from the parking lots to the skating pads. And these improvements will help to ensure that visitors can enjoy a safe and accessible skating experience when visiting both rinks. As we all know, COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted investments in the health and wellness of Ontarians. It's even more critical than ever has been before. And our 2021 budget, which was released just last week on March the 24th, I guess that's 2 weeks ago, builds on a record investments made in response to that global pandemic, bringing the total investment to $16.3 billion to help protect the health and $23.3 billion to protect our economy. Ontario's COVID-19 action plan now totals $51 billion, and supporting cultural and recreational infrastructure projects like the ones we're celebrating today help to protect our communities, making them stronger, making our communities healthier, and making our communities safer. And I'm delighted that the community of Etobicoke Lakeshore will benefit from our joint announcement today. The Investing Canada Infrastructure Program is providing up to $30 billion in total funding for communities all across Ontario over the next 10 years, which includes $10.2 billion from the provincial government. We're rebuilding economies, and we're creating healthy and safe communities across Ontario through our partnership with the federal government and, of course, with our community partners, our municipal partners. And I'd like to thank both you, MP Maloney, and you, Mayor Tory, and Councillor Grimes, who I don't think he's here today, but I just want to thank you for our great working relationship. You know, I think it's really important, the work that we do together as a team. James, you mentioned it, we are a team, we do work together, and I like that relationship, and let's keep that going for the benefit of all residents of Etobicoke Lakeshore. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you for joining us, and now it's time for Mayor Tory.
Councillor Jennifer, thank you. And Christine and James, thank you very much for being with us this morning. You know, it's interesting because last week, some of us were together again, celebrating cooperation of all 3 governments in a massive investment that took place in our pharmaceutical vaccine production industry. And again, there were three governments working together. We were talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. And that was very important. And that too will create jobs, and it'll create a lot more than that in terms of our independent capacity to produce vaccines in the city and in this country. But I was saying in an interview I was giving yesterday that, you know, there are kind of two jobs you have these days. One is managing the pandemic, and that announcement to do with vaccine production may have more to do with that in the short and long term. But we also have to continue just to keep the city moving forward on kind of things that are more day to day. And I think today's announcement, while it's nowhere near the size of last week's, it's about $9 million, I think, on the button in terms of what the three are putting in. Federally, 3.6 million, Ontario, 3.0 million, and Toronto, 2.4 million. These are the kinds of things that are important to the residents we serve, and the residents in particular, in this case, for the most of this money in Etobicoke, but some of it in central Toronto as well. And so that is why it has been so important that we maintain these relationships and this cooperative working arrangement that we have between the three governments, so that we can come forward together and each do our part. That's one of the things that I think makes these arrangements work, is that you have the federal government, the provincial government, and the city government all investing together and putting up money, which is serious money. Look, $9 million is still a lot of money, and it certainly is going to be meaningful to the people who it's going to serve, with the swimming pool renovations and the rinks that are going to be refurbished for people's future use. That use is highlighted in terms of its importance by the pandemic and by the premium that's placed on the ability to do things recreationally, whether it be outside or inside, and the inside has been more limited. But I think nonetheless, it makes it even more important than ever that we invest the money in these kinds of facilities, so that we can make available to people the maximum number of well-kept facilities for them to enjoy and to get some recreation and to be away from home, especially for those who may not have a backyard and others. These things have to be in shape. And at Norseman, you're going to see, and these things are not that dramatic or you know, bold when it comes to sort of what people sometimes expect from government announcements, but it sure is important to make the Norseman pool work properly, to have a new roof, to have accessibility improvements, to make sure everybody can use these facilities. At the rinks, you've heard Christine and others refer to the refrigeration plants and things that are just basic to being able to make ice. Therefore, have a skating rink available and proper accessible change rooms and the like. And so I just want to acknowledge that, you know, when you have these kinds of partnership arrangements, in order to have a partnership, you got to have partners. And in our case, sitting at the city, we look to the federal and provincial governments. And I want to say thank you to Infrastructure Minister McKenna and to James Maloney, who is not only the MP for Etobicoke, but also heads up the GTA caucus. So we talk often about these kinds of things across the city, and I want to thank them. I want to thank Premier Ford and Minister Scott, as well as MPP Christine Hogarth, who again has been an advocate. I saw both of them at the Daily Bread Food Bank on Saturday when we were trying to help out a little bit there. And they take the opportunity to share with me some of their needs, and I take the opportunity similarly to share with them some of those kinds of things. And that's the way a lot of this gets done, just in those kinds of conversations we have about things that we need to get done together collectively in the best interest of the people that we all serve. And I should, of course, mention Mark Grimes, who just couldn't be with us today, but who is the ultimate fighter for the interests of Etobicoke, and you know, certainly will be very happy and is very happy with these announcements. So I think that, you know, what we're seeing again is governments working together. We are working together. I want to assure people on the pandemic. I mean, you know, when we pass over a significant threshold today, like 600,000 doses administered in the city of Toronto, the most by far of any municipality in the country, that's a three government effort. When we are working together on different measures to try and deal with the pandemic and help people through that, whether it's businesses or other people, it's a three government effort. All of these things have been a three government effort, and I'm just so delighted that, and I've made it a priority of mine, as they have, to make sure that we continue with that kind of cooperative, constructive, collegial sort of relationship, because I think people more so than ever now, they're always expecting us just to get things done and avoid a lot of the rest of it. Now more than ever, they just want us to get things done, put this pandemic behind us, and make these kinds of investments, which are, yes, about jobs in the short term, but they're also in the long term about making sure the swimming pools and the skating rinks are available to us and to our children and grandchildren in a way that you know, appropriately invests in them and protects and preserves them. So I'm happy that we're able to do that. So I thank my two colleagues very much, and their ministers and colleagues as well. And we will leave it at that. And I thank our staff as well, because the city staff, because these are city owned and operated facilities, of course, they have to do all the work drawing up the plans to do the renovations and the replacements of refrigeration plants and so forth. And as usual, they've done a great job at that. They will actually now oversee the work, and they're here today if there are any technical questions that arise out of any of this. Thanks very much. Jennifer, back to you.
Thank you. I echo the thanks to staff, and thank you, Mayor Tory, for your strong commitment to ensuring that our state of good repair also improves energy efficiency and accessibility. And likewise, a big thank you to MP Maloney and MPP Hogarth for their commitment in this respect, and also strong partnership. We know that Toronto's population continues to grow, and the needs of Toronto residents are changing rapidly. Our understanding of how vital recreation is was underscored over the last year. The city must remain flexible and responsive to meet the changing needs of Toronto residents and to ensure that we are prepared to address the gaps and growth as they relate to provision of recreation services. A key component of this preparedness is ensuring that the city's existing recreation assets are well maintained and equipped to meet future needs. This work is often unglamorous, but necessary. I'm so appreciative of the investments made today by all three levels of government to ensure facilities will be better able to serve Toronto residents for years to come.
Thank you, Councillor. Now we will begin to take questions from the media. As a reminder, it's one question, one follow-up, and please unmute yourself when we call on you. We do also if you have any further questions. So first up, we have
Lavin, just so you know,
we'll
your
come back.
audio is breaking up there a bit. I don't know if you have your camera on or not, but just so you know that for the purposes of
Okay.
people hearing you.
So maybe David Ryder, did you hear that? You are up. Unmute. Perfect.
Hi, yeah, Lavin, sorry, you are breaking up there, but I heard you there. My first question is not recreation related, but I guess the news of the day yesterday, and it's for Mayor Tory. And that's, Mayor Tory, do you support that the public health officer for Toronto should use a Section 22 order and order schools closed, as some of her GTA counterparts have done?
Well, I will just say that we've been talking about this, most days, including yesterday. We happened to see each other in person at the opening of the new vaccine clinic and discussed this. And as usual, I will be looking forward to receiving her advice with respect to what additional actions, if any, should be taken in addition to the schools that were asked to be dismissed or closed as of yesterday. That's still a minority of the hundreds of schools that exist in the city of Toronto, and we'll be getting together again today. We've already met once this morning to continuously review this. And the only thing that I would request, obviously this is her decision to make, given the power she has as medical officer of health, with the advice from me and others. The only thing I would ask is that if there's a decision made to alter the arrangement similar to what's been done in Peel, that parents be given sufficient notice that they can make arrangements to accommodate the fact that virtual learning will be taking place in their homes. And other than that, I await her advice on a day-by-day basis on this, and we very much take it day by day.
Thank you. And my follow-up, I think, is also for you, Mayor Tory, and that's on the issue of outbreaks in workplaces and vaccinating those workers. It appears that the city's mass vaccination clinics that are primarily based on age groups is not getting the people where a lot of the variants are spreading rapidly. Is there thought, or has there been talk about kind of retooling the city's approach, whether it be mobile services to get out to where workplaces are, or anything else to try and get to those people?
Yes, thanks for that question, David. I indicated yesterday, and I would repeat today, we are actively working on plans to, and it isn't because the mass clinics have been in any way, they've been miraculously successful for the people who have come. They have functioned, I think, almost flawlessly, as has the registration system. But what has happened is there is still some capacity there that can be redirected in light of the fact that the public have chosen, as at this moment, in some cases, not to yet come to these clinics. And so we are actively working on ways in which, beyond what we're already doing. And today, I think in Toronto, there are 26 clinics, and by definition, most of those are to some extent mobile or out in the community in different settings. But we're looking at plans that we will share very shortly with the public to increase our efforts to be in the community, to be helping the most vulnerable people, to be looking at community settings in which we can vaccinate those who are more at risk, and at possibly the notion of addressing some workplaces which are similarly at risk, and seeing how that works. So we're sorting out the logistical details and expect to be able to share some of that thinking that would modify some of our plans, but it will still, at the core of it, will be these big clinics that can immunize a lot of people from around the city.
Thank you, David. I hope my audio is better now. And next up, we have Ji Yun from CP24. Go ahead.
Good morning, Mayor. Thank you for taking my question. I just wanted to ask, the top 3 doctors, medical officers of health for Toronto, Peel, and Ottawa wrote a letter to Dr. David Williams and are urging the province to issue a stay-at-home order immediately, given the rapid rise in cases. I just want to know your thoughts on that. Do you support this idea? Especially given that Toronto and Peel specifically have been in the gray zone for quite some time, and yet cases continue to rise.
I indicated on the day that the most recent, set of restrictions was announced last week, that I was open to the discussion from that time forward of additional restrictions, because I believe that they would be necessary in light of the numbers that we're seeing and the very disturbing kinds of case counts and ICU occupancy and hospitalizations and so on. That continues to be the case. And so I would say that of the letter that was written, there are a number of things suggested in there for possible implementation that I certainly think a discussion of a stay-at-home order or something equivalent to that is warranted. And I also believe that the discussion of perhaps limiting the capacity of some of the businesses that are open, especially the sort of bigger ones where there have been problems, I think that is a discussion that is warranted. And so I'm happy to be a part of that discussion should the province wish to discuss it. But most of these decisions rest in their jurisdiction. But I'm happy to discuss those things, because I think it's time that we really tried to say, look, let's do everything we can to put this behind us. And I think that's what people want. And I think they know in their heart of hearts that the economy will be much stronger, if they're concerned about that, after we do these things, than if we go along and think that we've necessarily done enough.
And as a follow-up to that, then some would argue that a stay-at-home order is needed, and then others see that many are frustrated with businesses being shut down. And then you see video from this weekend from a large mall, as well as a large big box stores, where there were large crowds. And given that Toronto and Peel have been in the gray zone for quite some time, many are wondering if any of these measures are working.
Well, I think they are working, because the vast majority of people, I think, are sticking to themselves, did over a time of holiday like Easter and Passover, where normally all kinds of family gatherings happen. And I think there were way, way fewer of those. And I commend people and I thank people for that. But I think that one of the reasons why I'm favorably disposed to a discussion about a stay-at-home order or something like that, and to perhaps looking at, further restrictions on capacity in businesses and maybe even in workplaces where there have been outbreaks or where there's a risk, is to cut down on those crowd scenes and cut down on the opportunity for the transmission of this virus, which, remember, only transmits itself from person to person. It doesn't come off doorknobs or car handles. It comes person to person. And so the more you can kind of try to limit for a temporary period those kinds of encounters, and the more people wear their masks and avoid socializing with others, the better off we're going to be in terms of putting this behind us and getting back to a healthy economy. If we don't do those things, then I think we might be in for a much longer haul, which I don't think anybody wants, starting with business people, but just people. They want to have a summer, as I put it, which is maybe a time frame we're looking at.
Okay, that's it for today, everybody. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Christine. Thank you,
Thank
Jennifer.
you, everybody.
Thank you, JD and staff.